All right, so I just like it. Peter, what is up, man?
Hello, it's so nice to finally get to chat with you. I
I
feel
know we've
like,
only done Discord.
yeah, only done Discord. I've been watching those So Rare data streams for so many years now, and you've been a staple of them. I've been wanting Laird to kind of get us on together, but I'm glad we could finally.
Laird only plays matchmaking so much.
Yeah.
Although, like, you may or may not know this, but the funniest one that we ever like, I'll joke like matchmaking, but it was just we wanted to have him on was when with Mike Penn, and we're
Mm.
like, oh, and Mike knows now. We're like, we talked so much shit behind his back. Like, is this gonna be awkward? I'm like, I think we should just admit to his face that we just are talking bad.
Yeah, the start of that episode or stream might be one of my favorites, like ever. Like I've rewatched it a couple of times because it cracks me up how, and it's like Mike has done some great work, some great
Mhm.
writing, and it's just crazy. Like he was so right about kind of where the product was a couple of years ago to kind of where we are now. And sometimes it's hard to see those things. Like you're just focused in like the game week, upcoming game weeks. What can I do right now? And sometimes that bigger picture just
Well,
escapes.
what's so funny because we're gonna bring to your role in this type of thing too, but it's when he started writing, that was literally peak so rare, like full FOMO, like people like Sean are out here talking about like this is gonna be his retirement plan, which I feel like even bad saying that, but like that was not a crazy thought. That was not a crazy thought based on where things were at. And you have this guy over here writing this article going, "Hey, it's not gonna be pretty. Watch out. Here's all the warning flags." And we were all like, "Who's this guy? I don't want that."
Yeah, and I mean, it's just he kind of had that understanding that kind of like, let's take a step back and be like, where is this going? And I mean, that's one of the best skills I think you can just have if you can just kind of pull yourself away from that. But and
So,
I think we all want to be able to do that. And I think a lot of us can. It's just sometimes it's just the emotional part of it. But that's part of what makes this game really fun. Like if I if I wouldn't probably be playing this game if I didn't feel some sort of attachment. Like I'm excited to like go and build my lineups every week. If that wasn't the case, like this product wouldn't still be here 4 years later or 5 years, however,
yeah.
however long it's been going on.
So fun segue though. You are also one of these people, maybe not as early as Mike, but maybe a little bit afterwards that goes, "Hey, talk to me about like how you decided to go that way too, but then still also play."
Yeah, I mean, it was a balance. So we can talk about how I got into So Rare
All of
later,
it. Let's go.
but oh, do you want me to start there or do you want to start with the writing and
Um,
kind of
let's do the
go?
rating first because we
Okay.
just were talking about it, but then we'll back up a little bit from there.
So it all started actually, I don't even know. I've started my writings, I think around December or so of last year, but kind of the
Feels
precursor.
longer than that,
I
to
know
be
it.
honest
I
with you.
was like kind of looking back in my history and I was like, wow, it's only been like 8 or 9 months of me
Yeah.
doing this. But like it feels like it's been forever, but that's just so rare years for you right there. But, before that, I had kind of been working with Simply Alex, another content creator in the So Rare universe, because there was kind of this focus on where should I play my cards? Like, I think that's always been one of the big questions on So Rare. Like, how do I best put my great cards to the best use? Are there some gaps? And so it kind of became like, how can like I help build this tool and look at sort of the data in a way to make better decisions.
Mhm.
Maybe some flawed thinking, maybe some good thinking, who knows? But it was just kind of fun. Like I've always really enjoyed looking at the numbers. And over time that evolved a little bit into kind of some dashboards that I've built. And then I was thinking it's like, these dashboards are like kind of ongoing, but how nice would it be to kind of just take some point in time, kind of think about the big picture. Like I'm starting to get all of this data together over time. And kind of once you start seeing the numbers over 25 game weeks,
Mhm.
30 game weeks, 40 game weeks, a different picture starts to emerge. Like, oh, what is happening to card prices? Like, is it really an issue? Or, kind of is the gameplay becoming better or worse? Like, what's going on with points? And it's just there's all of these avenues, there's all this data, sometimes too much data. And it just became about capturing these moments. Like, what can I talk about? What's kind of the hot button issue in the community? Does that feel warranted? Is it something that we're just kind of lacking some perspective on? And normally it's a mixture of both. Like
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
numbers will say one thing and sentiment will sometimes say another thing. We shouldn't just take the numbers as like, the numbers are always right because sentiment's important. Like how we feel can't always be reflected in quantitative ways. And so it's like, how can we have that conversation of like, what's the best way to do it? And so when I started doing my writings, I actually reached out to Mike because I was like, what is the best way to kind of preserve this? And he was like, I like using Medium posts, and then that's how it
Yeah.
started going into the future.
So it's funny you said one thing you just said there that I honed in on it and mentally cracked up about is you said card prices, which I think is the one thing that's always stuck out to me on So Rare, and I'm guilty of it too. I think it's just a human thing is we are fixated on our card prices. Like there are very few people that I think can adequately go, I'm just looking at the yield part on it. I on the server data streams, my Dusan Tadic card is like been used many times. It's because that one costs so much money. But if you actually look at it, yeah, he did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like I pay a lot. Andy Black says this a lot too. We paid a lot of money for these cards because what we won with them were worth a lot more money back then too. But what I want to ask you on the actual trend that I'm seeing right now when I'm like researching my cards, I'm not doing it nearly at your level, is card prices are like very stable. And on the end seasons, we actually, as the season started up, they actually increased a little bit depending on like who you're looking for and stuff. Yet, if you just look at Twitter sentiment, it's all crashing down. This is terrible, all this stuff. When you go, the data is actually saying something different.
I think the frustration, there's like kind of two things. Like, I think the market sometimes right now is a little difficult to judge.
Hmm.
At the start of the season, we saw them pump out cards like never before.
As they should have, by the way, if
As
you
they
ask
should
me.
have. Maybe it was a little too overwhelming on day one. That would be my only sort of
Yeah,
complaint
what
with it.
was it like? It was like serial number like 4 through 7 was like when the deals could happen. It was like, all right,
Yeah,
there's a little
exactly.
trough.
And it was funny because like I'm running on a Mac. Like that's not the most powerful computer in the world, but it should be able to do a job. And I don't think I could have more than like 4 or 5 Chrome tabs running.
Really,
And it was like so rare was
I
like
remember
crap.
you telling me
It was
this.
too
Yeah,
much data. I was just like, I can't follow all these auctions. So like, maybe that's something for them to improve going forward. But I think the market's been relatively stable. I think market credits are creating a little bit of sort of,
noise.
what is really going on.
Yeah,
That's kind
that's a
of
good point.
needle to the secondary. But I think the frustration for users is even though like the classic cards are, relatively speaking, there's always
Right.
exceptions. It's just that feeling that it's not the feeling that you can't win as much or more than before. It's the feeling that most of the cards, most of the leagues can win less. Like the
Right.
players that can win more are the champion cards. And so all of a sudden this like utility power has shifted where it used to be about like Asia, Argentina, getting those Celtic guys. And now it's not about that. And
Yeah.
that's like a really difficult sudden change. I mean, I know we've had 6 months, but it doesn't really hit you until it hits you. And I think it's sort of that feeling that I
Yeah.
think the unfortunate part of all of this, but I think that's a necessary part at the
Yeah.
same.
But so is actually what makes the game so great is that even that is a little bit noisy because like right before I got on with Laird, and I hope he doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but he was like, dude, I was just like looking through, I'm winning more cash right now than I ever did before. And that's because, and I'm like, well, that makes sense, dude. Like you had a plan. He wanted to be a contender boy, and specifically, he even went ahead and says like, "Hey, I'm gonna find these contender cards that have incredibly low mints that could be cheat codey, and I could kind of be on my own island. I don't even know if he actually thought cheat code. I think he was more of like, how cool would it be to only be the only person that can run this lineup up? Because a lot, like we talk with Nep or we talk about like an in season. I guess it's classic too, but just a lot of lineup duplication where XP and collection bonuses can sometimes tell the difference. And like his whole plan was, I want to get away from that. I'm gonna have this guy that only has like 10 people. So what if this guy only has 10 minutes? What are the chances that those other 10 people are gonna have the exact same lineup as him? Statistically, very, very low.
I agree with that. I wonder, like, you know what, my behavior sort of has turned into a little bit of, I'm gonna run with the cards I have.
Right.
And I think that's when we start seeing like, oh, if you're playing that way, that's okay. Like you should have fun with the cards you
Yep.
have. But you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because there
100%.
are cards, especially in contender and challenger, where there's so many options where you can go get a guy. And it's not going to be a great like I'm not saying you need to go get Biscagli, but there is
Right.
a guy, as I think mentioned on a recent show, Sorare did a show, like there are guys that can score like Biscagli.
100%. In specific
And
times.
yeah, at
Yeah.
any time. And it's just about going out and finding those guys. And, at least personally for me, I don't put that effort in. And
No.
so it's not surprising when I don't win as much cash or don't win as many boxes. I just have chosen not to put that effort in. And that's
And
okay. That's a personal decision.
absolutely. And guess what? Like the game should probably have like a reward element for people that dig down. You know, I feel like sometimes I'm known as the guy that digs down. Sometimes I just don't have the time for it. And I have really, really crap game weeks, and it's because I just didn't have the time that game week. And I'll
Yeah.
always be like, I don't know if you've had this too. I always go back and I'll go like I'll see everybody rips except for one guy. Oh, I knew he wasn't gonna do that well too. Like, oh,
It's a
ran out of time.
killer. It's a killer for me when I'm like thinking about buying a guy and then I kind of talk myself out of it. And then I see the score he put up and I was like, that is exactly what I thought was going to happen. And I had a spot for him and I just missed out on 40 points. And that would have been the difference between $5 and $50. And this guy costs $10. And I just
That's
want to, and that kills me. And that's just part of the game though. Like that's a decision I made. I think also with the game, like a lot of my focus for the dashboard and a lot of the writing I've done, I think one of my early articles was talking about how like we should value these entrances. Like they're free to enter. Like I can put any lineup I want in because I've paid for the cards. Like I have my collection of cards and this is my club and I can run it how I want. But So Rare are giving out a certain number of prizes, a certain dollar value, and if there's so many people entering it, like that card, that competition is that valuable. And every single week I get to enter that competition. And over the course of like 20, 30 game weeks, that's a lot of money if I think about it. I just don't see the cost. I'm seeing the cost in different ways or by playing in different ways, but it's like that's such a great place to kind of think about. Like you're getting so much value out of just getting to enter a lineup.
well, so then you go next level too, and you go, this is where you can't quantify this, but the player only has so much time at a specific level too. Like Biscagli, right? The Sean's kind of said this, but I don't know if we got the next level too. Is like he is the best card probably on the platform. I think it's okay maybe to say that. I'm sure some people will argue a little bit, but he's very close to being that. He will not be very, very soon. And so it kind of comes if you own one, you just asked this in this already stream essentially, but you could argue that as long if you own one, let's say that you own like a maxed out Biscagli right now, if you aren't optimizing every single Biscagli lineup that you have, and you're deciding to keep him at this rate, knowing that his card value is going to tank off, you're kind of making like a not very good expected value decision. Or is that a
Yeah.
little bit, or is that a little extreme?
I mean, I think I think that becomes a conversation of like, are you putting the right guy? Like, are you building your gallery in the right way?
Well,
And it,
right, it was like, should you even own him right now,
yeah,
especially with the
exactly.
limited shelf life? Were you
Yeah,
on? Were you on the platform when Gakpo was leaving?
I've been like on this platform for a long time, and I've been very bad at this platform for
So just lately,
it took me
just like
so long to kind of get that understanding, and
got
prices
it.
were so
They
crazy
were they were they were
that it
rough.
just like because I was on the platform basically when limited cards came out around
Okay,
that
when
time.
that first happened. Okay.
You know, it's not re I was introduced to the platform a while earlier than that because, one of my buddies who I lived with at the time worked at the Players Association, the
Yeah.
MLSPA,
Okay.
and he was kind of talking about like he was like a law student at the time and was kind of working in the legal department, and they had to review all of the so rare, like all of the players and the cards that were getting sent off for so rare. Like
Oh,
he had to
interesting.
go through and look at them, and he was like telling me about it, and I was like, oh, that's fun. Like that's an interesting take on fantasy because
Right.
I think fantasy is pretty big in the US, maybe not in other countries, but I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to think about fantasy sports. And I remember I like sat on the couch and I was like trying to bid on like a Diego Chara back when the website looked terrible. And I was like,
All white. All white.
I don't even understand what's going on. And I think I came back to the platform like 6 or 7 months later, was terrible at it for a
Yeah.
long time, not
You're
buying the right
supposed to be.
cards.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
supposed to be.
buying players like Bill Hamid, who then just were atrocious.
Don't disper that guy was in one of my first big ones ever.
I
Him
did
and
not get
Steve
him at that
him
point.
and Steve Birnbaum. There you
Yeah.
go. As a DC United fan, you appreciate that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I just got Bill Hamid towards the end of his life
Uh
cycle.
he's still
When he was like
I mean
out
he's
with
still
hamstring.
living, but have you ever followed him by the way, Bill Hamid?
I
I
have
think he
not.
was on like the Charleston something.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I had player alerts. Uh, People have made fun of these. I'll keep the sofa alerts on forever, and they'll be like, like right now, a lot of my guys, I get the Qatar or the
Yeah.
Saudi alerts, and then they just rip over there. I'm like, oh. But Bill Hamid got like he went way down.
Yeah, he went way down. I think he was like goalie in like Nashville or Charleston, and then he got
Yeah,
cut from the team because he was like too problematic.
it's like, well, yeah. 2 years ago, some dude was winning money with my JPEG in the MLS, and now I'm here.
Yeah.
So
It's
is that what got you into it? Just seeing like your friend like going, "Oh, this is pretty cool." You're like, "Hey, this is cool
well,
too. I like soccer."
what was interesting is he has not been on he's not on the platform.
Okay,
He's just like doing the very like the the side of like kind of the negotiating and dealing
right.
side. I mean, he had to do the low level work of just like approving every single player before it went out and checking like for spelling errors and all
So
that.
is he the one that we can thank for some of these misprints? Was that just too many clicks in a row?
Probably. I mean, there are so
That's
many players, and
tedious
it's
work.
just such a such a like
Or
it's random and
or
tedious.
or is your buddy? Is he like Andy Black's long lost brother? And he's like, this would be really funny to make a tiny Carlos Acevedo here. Let me
Yeah.
approve.
Yeah, I wonder how all of that works.
Yeah.
Like because I know it's all kind of strict because
Right.
as we can see while we're waiting for some photos still for some of the packs to be open.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I mean, it was just one of those things where like I, signed up, I got all my common cards. I didn't realize how good it was that I got like an Allison common at the time.
Yeah.
And I had like an Allison, like like I had a lot of the Liverpool guys, and I was
Okay.
just put the phone down because I was like, I don't like this is too confusing. I don't understand how this auction works. Like it doesn't feel like it went through, even though I paid. And then like I
Yeah.
never got a charge. And then I came back later and I was like, let me try it out a little bit more. Cause at that time I was like kind of dabbling. I started listening to some of those early podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm specifically thinking it was like I think it was probably a couple of the guys who were on the BlackRock team or
Oh no
not
no no not BlackRock.
Blackpool. Blackpool, sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Super
Y
American.
what was
Say
it?
BlackRock.
YNWA and a Hibby? Was that
Yeah,
IB?
because I
IB?
listened to that because that was
Okay.
sort of that
Yeah,
introduction
yeah.
podcast for at the time, I feel like. And I kind of got a better sense of the game, not well enough to play, and I started trying to get those thresholds and just a lot of the pain of just trying to find those fringe players that could
Yeah.
like,
I mean, you're making me think back to like my own self getting on the platform and even being plugged in right away with a couple people that were playing it was hard, dude. And I mean, yeah, just the amount that you had to outlay for this, like you said, the site looked like crap too. And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna put thousands of dollars into this site that looks like crap. But like, there's something that should be said just from like user interface looking more realistic. That you're like,
yeah,
okay, okay, they're putting some money on the back end. I can put some of mine on the front end now too.
definitely. Like I'll never forget how painful it was just trying to buy a card on my phone. Like that first, like when I was going for that Diego Chara auction.
I can
And I
imagine.
was like, I could not, like, I was like, I don't know if this went through or not. Like, I didn't know.
Well, and you're also probably like, I know my buddy works for them and they got paid, but am I about to lose whatever I'm putting in here? Like, is this real?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, because like at that time also, like when you're, I think when most people are coming onto the platform at that time, nobody's coming on and being like, all right, brand new player, I'm gonna drop 3 grand on a
yeah,
goalie. Like it just
that's the
wasn't
exception.
realistic.
Yeah, that's the exception.
Um, and so it was like all of these fringe things, and it just created this sort of kind of difficult atmosphere to start in. And, so it's, you look at the product then, and then you kind of look at it now, and it just feels better. Like it does for all the flaws that are still
No,
in.
I agree. For all the flaws and all the different things that like there's a lot more it just feels a lot better. Like I still remember my first ever deposit was trying to get crypto in and I had never bought crypto. And I decided that was the best way to get money in. It's not if you don't know what you're doing. It's like, all right, bought it here. Now what? Oh, it's got to go into a wallet. Ah, what? The one in my pocket doesn't work? What is it? It took me like 7 days to get money on, and I finally got on. One of my good friends from the DFS world. I'm like, it's on. He's like, congrats. Are you gonna do anything? I'm like, I don't know. I spent a whole week trying to get the money over here. I'm just kind of celebrating that it shows up at the top right.
I remember like the fear the first time I was depositing was like it was gone from like my Coinbase account and it was not in the So Rare wallet. And I
Dude, the
was like,
15 minutes of hell.
and sometimes even longer because like I think I was onboarding during like kind of that not peak ETH,
Yes.
but sort of during when like the network was super slow because it was super congested and these high fees that you were just having to pay just to get ETH
Yep.
over. I was like sitting for hours,
Like,
sometimes
did I
like
screw
8 or 9 hours
something up?
waiting and being like, did I just send $300 or $400,
Right.
the first, just to try it out? Did I just throw that away? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, 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 that was with it. So that's a very interesting way to get in. I don't know if I've heard that one before from a friend looking through JPEGs and saying it's cool. So kind of going back to before that with like the Biscagli and the Gakpo thing. So like I don't even remember Gakpo, but he was going to move. And there was a big debate for a lot of people that held it was like, do I sell it now while his price is up because he very well could crater. Like what's sort of guys always joke for Piscaglia that if he ends up was like Crystal Palace or one of those places, like he's useless. Not useless, but he's not going to be worth what he does. So I kind of feel like you have to maximize that type of guy if you know he's going to go. You've got to max because, like you said before that, you only have so many games, and like you only have so many this season. Now, if he's in season, that's even a completely different animal.
yeah, and I mean, you could kind of see that. We were talking about the Gakpo, like that was crazy back in the day.
Yeah.
Even I just remember, I think his limited prices were like well over a
Oh,
grand at a time too.
yes, 100%.
And but like you kind of saw it this season with Biscagli just to start the year. Like if you look at his price graph, there was a lot of like, oh, is he going to like
Because the
stay
window was
hot?
open. The window
The
was
window
open.
was open,
Yeah.
and it was like this tension where I can only imagine what it's like on the so rare side. Like I'm sure like their game economists and all of that are like, do we pump out as many as we can of him before the window closes in case like he craters and he's like worthless at Crystal Palace? Or do we just kind of wait a little bit and just hope he stays and maximize selling
So,
value?
so you just said another thing. I'm going to press you on because you're technically an economist,
Yeah,
or very much. No, hold on. Technically, is Tuggy technically being a scientist? You are an economist, right?
yeah, I am.
So, do you think? I want to ask more about that in a minute, but do you think that Sir is actually looking at that, or do you think it's just automated and just pumped out? Like, do you think they're going? We have this very valuable card right now.
I
That
think it depends on the scarcity. I think when you're looking at limited and rare, it's just too many cards. Like you have plenty of cards to sell that you can get away with it. And we can see this because we don't have auction schedules for super rare or unique, where it's like that they're waiting for a specific point to hit a trigger, or they have something in their trigger in their system ready to trigger based on L5s or L3s or whatever to like list. So there's definitely
right.
something behind the scenes going on because how many times do we see unique auctions where it's
I
like,
was gonna say
oh, this
that.
guy's finally starting. Let's throw him out
But
on an
see, the problem with that though was, God, who was I think it was AJ maybe way back when, like, peak boom, like
yeah.
unique auction watches that were fun as heck to follow along with. Like that was a really good time. But it was like Mbappe hadn't come out yet. Like they were like holding cards, and then the first year of NBA, I think it was like Jokic or Embiid hadn't been printed yet. And it's like, what are you waiting for? Like
And I feel like with NBA, like one of those guys still didn't even get minted
it
that
was.
season.
I think you're right. I don't recall enough to say yes or no, but it was like
And
in the playoffs, and we were like, are they just trying to make like an MVP edition or something like that?
yeah, I think it was AJ. It was either AJ or YNWA.
AJ is the one I think that called the flag to that one year that they're
It
just
was like
up
Mbappe hadn't been auctioned, Neymar hadn't
Kimmich,
been auctioned.
and
Like
it was like
like
the half the season was gone, and it's
it
like,
was
you
like March.
guys, like what are we waiting for?
Yeah, yeah. Like those have always been sort of interesting
But
discussions.
but like an
But I
economist,
think
an actual economist would go, this is dumb. Like go, right?
yeah, like you should get it out because like people will want that for the entire
Right.
season.
Right.
I think, it's definitely different now though, with the in-season classic split. There is a lot more pressure is not the right word, but there's just significantly more incentive now because that card can win you so much cash throughout the year
Yep.
that if you sell it later, that card can win less cash and, by extension should be less valuable. So the incentives are different now, but I'm certain they keep an eye on that stuff.
This is
Um,
where you're like, I certainly hope.
yeah, I mean, yes. I don't know the inner workings. I know there's a bunch of teams. They have game economists. They have all
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving pieces. It's not quite as simple. I think a lot of us always look at a task and we're like, just hire someone for that task. It's not that cheap to hire someone in
No,
all
no.
fairness, also at the same time.
So
And so
so
you
when
have
are you gonna
people,
work for them?
well, no, I love where I work right now.
So
No.
tell us about that. A lot of us don't know. I don't even know if I think you said one time on a server data stream, and then I don't know if I heard it. So tell us a little bit about your non-server life.
Yeah, so um simply put, I went to college in the South. I grew up in like kind of
Where did you
Augusta.
go? Where did you go?
I went to South Carolina.
Oh,
So
okay. All right.
yeah, I went there. I went to Auburn for like a year and then I transferred.
Okay.
Just to save money with that
You're
inflation.
an SEC boy too. Love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I grew up in Augusta, Georgia, so big golf background for
Hmm.
me. I used to be better at golf than I am now. I'm no Mike. I can't hit, I can't play 72 holes in like 18 hours or whatever
Yeah.
he did.
No
But I
chance.
just kind of I just like getting out on the golf course. It's a ton of fun. But yeah, so I went to South Carolina. That's where I got my degree in economics. And then I graduated like a half semester early, and I kind of always had this pressure from my parents. It's like, you need to go to grad school. And I was like, okay, well, grad school means medical school or law school. And I was like, I don't want to be a doctor. So I was like, okay, I'll apply to law schools, and my girlfriend or my wife at that point,
Hey, there you go.
girlfriend,
Good.
lived kind of moved back to Washington, D.C. Like that's where her family was. So I was kind of focusing in on like maybe jobs there, but also law school programs there. And so, I was fortunate enough to get into one that was in the DC area. And I went there for like, I was like halfway through the semester and I was like, what am I doing here? I hate writing. Like, I cannot stand reading and writing. Like, I've always been a numbers person. And so, like, halfway through, I was like, I got this job application, or I had sent out applications months prior. And the USA Jobs, that's the federal government
Okay.
site for applying, for those that don't know. It takes time. And about halfway through my law school semester, my now boss had reached out and was like, "Hey, are you still interested in like working for the FAA?" And I thought to myself, well, I really don't like reading and writing. Like I'd much rather like kind of work with numbers and be in that side of things. And so like I did the interview and was offered a job and I was like, I am out of law school. This is not for me at all. Um, and I've just been there ever since. Like I've really always appreciated the opportunities they've given me.
Hmm.
And right now I'm also working on my master's
Oh,
for
okay.
data
Perfect.
science. So
And
that's
what was that? What was that in?
for data science.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I'm kind of doing that part time with their support, and it's been just kind of it's it's just a great job. It's like I have the time, I have that work-life balance that's most important to me, and that gives me the opportunity to do stuff on So Rare because
Yeah.
I have plenty of free times in my evenings. Like I'm not tied down to a phone or having to work late very often. And so that flexibility to just be able to pop in and kind of work with numbers, as well as just the benefit. Like part of the reason I started doing all the dashboarding and stuff in So Rare wasn't just because I like numbers and I liked So Rare. I was like, oh, I'm going to get better at Tableau. I'm going to get better at kind of understanding these sorts of macro issues if I just do this in my free time. And so it kind of became this like mutual, like I got enjoyment. I got a like much better experience for kind of the stuff I was doing at my job because it was my first job. Like I wasn't that experienced with like
Right.
real world application. So this is a great playground for me. And kind of since then, it's just ballooned where it's like now I really enjoy doing all of this writing, which is something I
I
hated.
know. I was gonna say you kind of missed the calling back in law school with this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever regret dropping out of law school, but as I think about it now, I think about like all of those things that had to even happen though for me to be introduced to So Rare. Like if I didn't go to law school, I'm not meeting the guy
Yep.
who I ended up living with, who then ended up working at the MLSPA. And none of that's happening if I didn't get my girlfriend in college whose family lived in Virginia. Like it's just interesting
No,
how that kind of like all happens and it feels like all these chance and circumstances, but
that's that whole spider web and what do they call it? Butterfly effect stuff that you actually like, especially as you get older, you're just like, crap, turn right versus left, like all these different variables happen.
yeah,
Not just, and that happens in solar too. Just like our own little lineup decisions. Like, Laird is very, keep bringing him up, but you remember those like graphics that he'll do? I feel like every once in a while he'll just go down this like rabbit hole of going, what did this one player win me? Won me
yeah.
this, and then that guy won me this, who then won me this, who then I traded for that. I'm like, oh my god.
That doodle that he'll bring that up on streams
Yeah,
occasionally, and it is crazy. Like I don't have anything like that because I don't think I've ever won a star card on So Rare as an example.
needs to happen.
I
Personal
think I've
mission.
yeah, but I don't play classic anymore. Like I don't even think
Oh,
like
true. But if you can win enough money to buy a star card, then we'll call it
I
personal.
mean, I did win Challenger once
Yeah,
and got
yeah,
second, but it's different. But those don't cause the same sort of spider webs because it's harder to be like, I won circling $1,200. And
for
then like
sure.
look at all of the things I wasted this money on.
Right. No, no, you're spot on there. I didn't think of that way, but that's exactly right. But yeah, that whole little like player to player to player. Now you can still do though. Like this player was the key reason I won
Yeah.
$1,200. I paid X. Have you any plans of like doing that like with the ROI aspect, going any
So
deep on that or
it's actually funny, kind of to start when in season started, I was like, I'm going all in on MLS, guys. Like, I think this is going to be really interesting.
I remember
MLS
that.
is the only team, only league playing in Challenger in season. So it's basically like the Prem comp but for MLS. But I think I have a knowledge advantage over at least a good chunk of
Yeah.
people. Because I follow, I love MLS soccer. I have like season tickets for
So
DC
good.
United.
It's
Like,
so good.
it's
It's so
so
good.
fun to watch. And I was like, I think I can do really well here. And they had those like MLS special tournaments
Yeah. Beginning.
at the beginning. And then I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks in, the Challenger season was still going on. I had like been winning maybe $50 or $100 every now and then with those MLS specials. And then I was like, I think I need a Mertens card, a Dries Mertens card.
Okay.
And I'm blanking on who the goalie was because I was like, I'll just grab those two cards. They seem too cheap at like
Okay.
15. And then they just both went on a run where it was like Mertens, and I think it was the same game where Mertens and the goalkeeper like both got hundreds, and then like Messi got 100, and I was like, all of a sudden I just won Challenger, and the like ROI chart where I was like matching all of my purchases, like 5 weeks in, just like flew up, and I was like, all right, it's pointless to track this now. Um,
But you know what you said there though is I think like what is so weird about things, but especially in season with it being money driven or cash driven, it really just does just take a week and like everything can change. Like, Harry just won. He's had those Wales super rares for a while, and he just added Harry Wilson for not very much money and
yeah,
immediately spikes. But like all those other ones, no matter like what he overpaid or all that, you just won.
yeah, and like all it takes is 1 week. All it takes, especially nowadays, is 1 week in Division 1. And I think that's sort of
Yep.
the recognitions. Like you want to be in Division 1, even though you can maybe churn a little bit easier in some of the lower divisions, you're not going to make up that churn if your players spike. Like
Nope.
that's where you miss out. So like winning those $5 extra, because I think the weekend I won that Challenger Division 1, like I didn't have the highest score. I think maybe it was like even SR Monkey who had like 15 or 16 more points than me.
But in two.
But I don't think his priority, at least from like the podcast I listened to, was to be in Division 1.
Oh, this was back like the whole be lower and it's easier to win.
Yeah. And so
Oh,
and at my point, I was like, I just want to be in Div 1. Like
yeah,
I
it's
my
gonna be the best
like
chance.
I like that's I think I can peak. Like I think I have players that can get those 550 points. And like that's sort of the difference. It's like that I think is hard to quantify. It's like, yes, sometimes you can get lower scores and you can win a T5 card. Why do I want a T5 card?
Right.
Like, or why do I want $5?
Or
Like
why do I want $10? Yeah.
$5 isn't doing anything for me next week. Like, sure, I can buy one, like maybe I can buy half of a player or whatever, but it's sort of that was always my mindset with the MLS over the summer. And then like it did well enough where then I got into the mindset of I don't even care anymore. Like I don't I stopped kind of tracking stuff and I didn't like
That's easy.
my plan was to like sell off players and kind of like get my total kind of spend back. And now I'm just like, they did so well. They're all
I'm
free.
so far
Like,
up. I can't sell these legends. Come
but I was just
on.
like, they're free in my head is what happens. It's like,
Sure.
oh, these guys are free. I'll have them forever.
How would your
And
economist how would an economist view that?
I think there's sort of I think been starting to make jokes about it, how like I'll say one thing, but then I actually do a different
Because
thing.
that's emotions versus practicality.
Yeah, because like the smart side of me feels like, I'm gonna play with these Prem cards and whatever cards like, especially the star cards that I'm keeping and building some collections around to boost up. I'm just like, I'll have them throughout the season. And then end of the season, I'll sell them off. I don't even care. Like, whatever, I'll take that money back and I'll go again next season.
Right.
But I know
You're not
myself.
going to.
I'm not going to sell those cards. I'm, I'm just gonna whatever. I'm just gonna buy the next session of in-season cards.
The there's a couple things on that. One, you just don't know when they're gonna pop again. Like
Yeah,
I just and it ended up not being like a great card, but I'm trying to think. It was like Challenger D1. I can't remember if I got first or second, but there was probably some cash. And then I got Bakayoko was the winning card for for it. And immediately like I think the last sale was like $400. I priced it a little bit lower than that. I think his floor now is at like 275 or 300. Like I don't know what happened. It seems fine. I probably just need to get rid of the card. But regardless, it was like all these like mismatched cards that I had that I just didn't get rid of. And they haven't done too much for me the whole year. But all of a sudden, this one week it happens, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, I want to say it was maybe like $300 or $400 in cash and all that. It's like, well, that's this is where it really starts screwing my head. That's more than if I sold that whole lot of them. I would not have gotten even the amount probably of the cash that I won, not even including the Bakayoko card, which if I end up keeping it, could he end up winning me more cash? Because that's a pretty good card as long as he doesn't move too. So like that's where the game gets you, Peter.
yeah. Uh, it gets me good. It gets me real good.
So it's like the
And
whole it's that whole butterfly rabbit hole effect. It's like, well, what if I sell this one? I'll give you one more. Then I wanted to hear what you say. But sorry, it's in my head. I came really, really close to selling a Ricky Pooch super rare that I own. I was gonna sell. It was like still getting a lot. Super rares, been getting kind of bashed and stuff like that. Especially classic. I'm like, I'm selling. I had all these BS guys that were no good.
yeah,
Sold a lot of them. Finally got a pretty decent offer for Pooch. I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. 2 weeks later, I got like a podium with the card, and it was just pure. It was in season too with Benteke, that legend. That guy's
yeah.
so fun.
He's so good. He's
But
so
this is where. So this is like my question. Like, should we get out ever, or as long as they're good enough, you just kind of have to go like, is there a way to mathematically trying to think of the correct word, like say this card could yield me this. Thus, it probably from even a mathematical sense, I could get $100, but over the course of the year, this card could technically yield me upwards of 3,000. Like that doesn't seem like a good deal. I shouldn't do that.
yeah, I mean it's one of those things where it's like once it's done really well, I don't want to sell it because I'm like, it's done really well. I'll get to use this card in the future. Like maybe there's some bad game weeks, and if I was really smart, I could sell and then buy back $15 cheaper and whatever. But especially now, though, like as so rare kind of are pumping out stats on the back of the cards that are relative to like how
Good
you've
point.
done. And I hope they lean into it more by maybe having like inside of maybe something more in collections where there's like challenges associated with like using all of your players that would do something where it's like, oh, score 1,000 points with this player and you get some bonus towards something.
Or
Um,
maybe like they talked about like just a graphic, like he gets an extra gold banner or he gets a badge or something like that.
I- Something, yeah, but like, especially if they lean into that, I'm never going to
Hmm.
sell my cards because I'm going to be like, no, I want
Don't
to,
you?
I want to, I want to be like a completionist. I want to complete all of these challenges with this card or this collection. Um, so like, maybe they'll do that in the future. Maybe they won't. Who knows? But like, that's gonna what that'll do is that'll just keep me. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna buy instead of like selling and then using that money to buy. But yeah, I just have that habit. But what's really funny to me about all of this is like I've been playing the EPL,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest, I did not want to play the EPL. And then on the stream with like Mike and Laird, Mike challenges me to an EPL, and I'm like, I can't say no. I can't just like
I'm
back
gonna
out
back down.
after kind of talking crap about Mike's like SO5 building abilities. Because like my plan was to play La Liga at the time. Like I was
Oh, you had
I
it. You knew the right way.
no, I still thought that, but then I was like, I can't like fully go in on like
No.
I just am not going to fully go in on
Yep.
both. I kind of got to put Mike in his place a little bit. Although it's really tight now. I have not been doing as well as I hoped.
Are you
Um,
yielding at all? Here and
somewhat.
there. Okay.
I'm doing like I'm okay. I'm doing okay. I
Because you
feel
bought good players. I mean, both of you guys had some good buys and things like that. But then
I've
obviously you had the Rodrigo.
I've gotten the Rodrigo, Odegaard,
Ugh.
um, and De Bruyne injuries. So like,
Oh God.
and I'm just like kind of like the midfield. Like I feel like I've been running double forward, which I don't like doing.
Right.
I don't love the midfield options in the Prem right now because City have
Um,
huge rotation risk. Liverpool's mids aren't that good.
they're not good. I can firsthand say that
Yeah,
because McAllister is not what he was during that run last year.
exactly. But even Szoboszlai and the Campbell,
Birch is actually probably like the best scorer, which is
but he's too
gross. He doesn't have an
consistent.
upside.
He doesn't have upside. Yeah, like
No,
he would be
he's gonna get you
great.
60s.
That would have been amazing 3 years ago. But like
God,
that's
it's a great point.
yeah. But and as I'm kind of looking down the list, I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't like any of these mids. And now there's more and of the forwards. I feel like
Right.
they're on sets or defenders even
Yeah.
that I'm just kind of like running single mids and I feel disgusting like every single time because it is never almost never run. I almost always run double mid. Like almost
Yeah.
always.
I love double defender actually still. I heard I don't remember
I
who I
thought that
thought
I
it
think
was.
that's crazy.
Why?
I just don't. I think there's just so much risk on the defender side
There
because if
is.
you're a big sets person,
Yep.
I'm a big net duels guy. I like looking at
Okay.
net duels.
I've never
'Cause
heard this one expand.
I just think like you can rack them up,
Uh-huh.
like you can have games, and there are people that like to like. It's a stat that's like somewhat consistent in my
No,
mind,
no, I agree. Especially like ground duels. Or
and
air duels for Benteke. I mean, he's always gonna win like
yeah, oh my goodness, he's crazy with that. But it's just like my problem with double defender is you get killed on duels lost. And that was just like not appealing to me.
you mean like the
Especially
center
if
backs just because
someone,
they're not always in the best shape to win them? Is that what you're thinking? Or
yeah, I feel like there's such like you need to get two duels basically for every one duel or every two duels won for like every one duel
interesting.
lost. And I just didn't like that. I just didn't like that. And then I don't know. And I just think there was a
I
lot
don't
of
know if
risk.
you're wrong, by the way, man. You have my head churning.
I just thought I think a lot, especially now with the -4 on
Yep.
goals, and I just
So I'll
I
tell
feel
you
like the
what.
inconsistency with Opta sometimes on defending stats can be like if you don't like those double doubles and triple
Yep.
doubles that are just like so contingent on like one stat or like them marking one stat that
Right.
it feels like defenders can just swing either way. And
Oh,
that's
it
why
definitely can.
I almost never run center backs. Like I just hate touching center
Dude,
back.
that's an Andy Black thing. He got
I
full like boom bust with the fullbacks. Or you can have like a Kai Wagner, which is like just cheating because he just
but
does it all.
and I wonder if maybe a lot of this like mentality strategy has always been built around the fact that I played MLS and I almost feel like
Center
the
backs are
MLS
terrible.
game
Yeah.
is just that challenger over the summer feels like a different game because it feels like you're targeting different
Yeah.
things than you
Well,
would like right now where you need Biscagli. Like I understand he's the best player
right.
because of the game works, but that's not the case for the MLS like at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, MLS specifically too, like has some of the biggest mashers on the entire platform, and they're all midfield. So
Yeah,
I do wonder, you're gonna make me think here because like where I got like for like La Liga, I'm like all in double defenders because it's just not a high scoring league.
yeah.
And you have a lot of they just pass back and forth a lot. They're just like, ah, I could just stay 70 yards from goal and pass back to that guy, and then he'll pass to me. If you're actually watching the game, you're like, this is glorious. Point one, point one, point one, and just adding them up. But God, I was not prepared for this. That is a very interesting thought. Because in Challenger and MLS, I always run double mid because,
You
you know,
have to.
I mean, if you actually are an MLS player or silver player, like there's certain guys that you almost just have to own because they're just such cheat codes. Like, you have like a Vander, Pooch, Gill for the longest time, probably not so much anymore.
Yeah.
Then I don't know if are you starting to plan it all for next year on MLS?
Yes, I'll be ready for next season in
Okay,
MLS. I don't know if I'll feel the urgency to buy
right away.
day one just
Okay,
because of how Challenger works. And
right,
so
because we're gonna have the overlap. That's a good point.
the overlap, and I feel like, part of what you need, I think it just depends where some Challenger prices are and kind of what the state of gameplay looks like
That's a good point.
there. Um, because like my fear is always running up against like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that like Eredivisie has like a couple of matchups and
PSV is minus 3,000, or even at PSV, and you're like, okay, I avoided PSV. Did not realize that Feyenoord was minus 1,000.
it's not even like I don't think stacking works that well in Challenger and
Agreed.
Contender, especially because there's so much variety. Like I
Agreed.
think when I won Challenger, I think I like sent out like a kind of like
Troll.
a troll tweet saying like ban stacks, and I
I
was
think I
like,
remember that.
uh, and funny enough, I think that or that lineup had double forward, which is like the bane of like my existence
Who would
because
it
that
have
was
been?
Mertens and
Okay.
Messi,
Okay. Well, I mean,
which
Mertens ended
makes
up
sense, but
becoming
like it's
the
just
Turkish.
not.
I mean, that guy probably right when you bought, he went on like some sort of heater too.
I bought him and then he went like 100, or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah. I
that.
remember that little run. Because I think it was funny enough. Like, everyone was like, ah, he's not very locked in. Like, that was always like the problem with Mertens. Like, ah, he's not really locked in. It's like, well, if he keeps banging hundreds,
Yeah. Yeah. And then, now that's like stuck in my mind that run. And so I, of course, bought his in-season card now. And I
he's
bought,
so good. He's so good though.
yeah, but he's not 100,
But
good.
I just got off,
No one
the
is.
layer. But I just got off that whole little
Yeah.
stream of layers as we're recording this, and like that was kind of the point, is that, really good players will go on these runs, but unless you're Messi, you're just not going to
Yeah.
do
But
that.
I think
Or Biscagli.
part of the reason I even bought Mertens again was just because the nostalgia. I was like, man, I had so much fun
Dude,
with him last season. Let me run it back again. Like,
100%.
let's
That
just have fun. Let's see what can happen.
and that
And
should be like a sorare patch. You own
yeah,
every season of Teddy Tuma, of Dries Mertens, or
yeah.
whoever.
Like it'd be cool. Like, how sometimes when you go on the market and like you'll see like the cards and there's like multiple behind it or
Yes.
something. Like I that would be fun in the club to be like, here's your player, and then you can
Oh.
see everything behind it.
No, no, I like that. And all that,
Because
that would
I
be
just
fun, just clicking through, just seeing like how much the cards have transformed too.
Yeah, I don't know, to see like all of the ones like over time, that could be fun. Because I have a few duplicates. I try my hardest not to duplicate players at all, even if they're really good.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's it's both like a great strategy and also like a curse, because it feels fantastic when they drop 100 and you have them in like four lineups, and then of course the guy DNPs and you're just like, well, one quarter of my lineups are dead because of one player. I'm an idiot.
yeah, and I feel like I need to get away from that mindset, especially now that I'm playing like the Prem, where it's like maybe I just need a couple of Sakas, or maybe I need like the forward and the mid version just to give me flexibility. Because I had reached out to you earlier because I was like, oh man, I'm thinking about buying Palmer, but I want his mid because I
Right.
think there's no mids right now in the
I
Prem.
thought that was pretty smart too, even though
And
you
then
had
I
the
didn't
despair,
buy him.
and then he dropped 4 goals or whatever that
Yeah, in
was.
fairness, though, I think I ran a DNP in each of my D2 lineups
Oh,
that
so
week.
it felt
And
worse.
it wouldn't have mattered, but that's
Oh,
just because I was stuck on a plane, so I couldn't.
so actually, I was gonna go. I remember what I was gonna tell you when you just said the D2, or what I was gonna ask you. One thing I'm like trying to think on right now, and I don't have a way to like monetize it or do anything other than just like I know that it's the right thing, is, have you done any sort of like thinking on, we talked about how D1 is just like so much bigger. And when you won it, they hadn't even, I don't think they realigned D1, but I don't think enough is being said about how much and how important it is to just get, maybe they are saying a lot enough, just get as many in D1 as you possibly can. Just, or like, once you have one in D1, like, if you know, like I just did this 2 weekends ago. I knew I didn't have a very good lineup, and it was only D2. It's like my little mission to get up. But I'm like, this. I don't even know if this might get relegated out of D2. And I just dropped it to D4, and I was just like, I'll promote this up. It wasn't. We used to drop to D4 to go, oh, it's easier to win there. I was like, now I can take a D4 and get it up higher and then do this all over again. Like I don't feel like enough people are really spending as much time thinking through the whole division thing as they need to.
I've thought about that some, but then what I come to think, like my realization as I'm like doing Prem and I'm trying
Uh-huh.
my to work 3 teams up there is you need so many players to support getting lineups into D1.
Yeah.
And then the problem is once you get a lineup into D1, you're not going to work to get your D2 lineup up to D1 and under prioritize what's already
Right.
up there because
Right.
then you're missing out. And so I think it's just like it's one of those things where like I think for my Prem gallery, I have a lot of variety in players, a lot of variety in star players. And I have that variety because I know that not every single game week they're all going to have good matchups. Like some will be worse than others.
Hmm.
That's sort of like working through the matchups on a week to week basis. So if I wanted to get all the teams in D1, I need everybody who has the good matchup that week to like, and it just doesn't have like you need to have double up on players and
Yeah.
it's expensive. Like
It's
it's
almost like though it's almost makes sense to diversify then out of Prem and going, maybe I shouldn't be trying to get 3 teams up here. Maybe that should be instead of that third team, that should be a La Liga team or that should be a Bundesliga team.
but even at that point, like you need to diversify La Liga to have enough play. Like you can be smart
Hmm.
about, but like you need that. Like I almost think it's at that point just easier to focus on one league because then you know everything about that league
Right.
and you're doubling up and expending like you can just do multiple on the way up. My thought recently has been I need to focus on getting my champion teams up to D1 or D2 at least because there will be game weeks when the Prem's playing on the midweek, no one else is, and there's going to be almost no entries in D1 or D2 because nobody's going to have promoted up there, and I'm going to have missed out on an opportunity to like.
Or the people that are promoted up there are still choosing to prioritize Prem. Because I think,
But but I don't think that many people because I think when there's you have like La Liga specific competitions,
uh-huh,
like people are like, I'm going to play in those because there's
correct.
less variability, so they're not getting their champ lineups up.
No, I don't.
Because
I'm not worried about
because
it at all. That's a good point.
And so, like, if you have that team in D2, like we've seen it with La Liga, where they've had some midweeks.
Yep.
I think those people who have been able to run in champ, because believe it or not, that's the best pool out of all of the competitions. That still is the best pool. And then all of a sudden, you don't have any, you have like far fewer players to play against because nobody's prioritized that. Like,
That's a good point.
there are going to be times this year where that's going to happen. People are going to get frustrated that they don't have a D1 or a D2
Right.
lineup and a D1 lineup. And so like that's sort of where I'm starting to try to position myself for later
But
on.
that's
Like I'm
kind of like what I was saying though, just getting as many teams and like as many regions in that D1 spot. So if you decide to take a run for it, like you can.
because think about it over the holidays. Prem is the only team playing, but that means champion's going to be open.
You're right. But everybody's gonna put their stuff into Prem.
Yeah, because
And
nobody's
champ will just be their leftovers.
why would you play your D3 champ lineup when you have a D1 Prem lineup?
Absolutely. Well, and then
Like,
also there's a really good likelihood that Sorare runs some sort of uh Prem boxing day special or Prem, winter break special. You don't think so? I think
no,
for sure.
because they already have their Prem competitions. Like
Yeah, but they've done multiple. They've done multiple. What a better time for like a marketing push.
well, I think that'll be a rivals thing.
Oh, that's a good point.
I just don't think they need to do like they don't
I
need to do.
agree that they don't need to do these special these actual like league comps, yet they've done them.
I could see them doing some sort of promotional box related thing where
Maybe
but
Essence Feeder. Do I dare say
they'll do something
that?
around, but yeah, I mean, and they're fine on limited essence. I've said that. I like they're fine there. They can do whatever they want, kind of.
Okay.
But they should absolutely do something around Boxing Day. Like it has the word box in it. How
Yeah.
can you not do something around that?
Yeah. Erling Haaland in a box. Fine.
Yeah.
Get a box to win one.
Yeah,
That'd be fun.
something. But even if they just it's a market thing,
Yeah.
like they'll do something. It's like players who score, whatever.
Oh, I hate that one. But I know I totally see that it works, but I hate that one so much.
I
You know why I
I
hate it
do
though, Peter? Because I know that I'm tempted and I just have to like tell myself, nope, don't do it.
I think So Rare's blunder from like a revenue side is allowing you to combine two promotions at once. Like being able to get those boxes by buying a player while using market credits. It should be one or the other. Like when I'm placing a bet on DraftKings, I can't combine multiple of their promotions together.
Right.
Like I have to pick one. And it's like I can either get my cheaper player or I can get a box.
No, and guess how many people are going to just choose a box and go, I'm just going to use my credit later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people will absolutely do
Because
that.
I would do that. I
Like
would do that. I'm like,
when
I'm just going to use my market credit later. And now you're forced to buy another player that maybe you weren't going to.
and like how many like I can't think of any places where I can stack like coupon codes. Like
No.
as much as we try, like and I think so like revenue, let's kind of maybe think about that. That won't be popular, but I think we should do that.
Dude, whatever they have to do to keep it pumping. All right,
Until
man.
they just need 5 in-season cards, but we won't go there.
Oh, it should. I've been on the train too. Oh, if we're gonna just say unnecessary or unlikable things, uh, I still think that next year will be 40 essence for a card. I think the whole 20 essence days are gone.
I think it's gonna be 5 in-season cards next year.
Well, what about the essence thing? Because you are Mr. Essence right now.
Hmm. No, I don't think
They
it
don't
should
need
be.
to.
No, because
Okay.
it's good to get the T5s out. Like T5,
Ah, good point.
like you need
Nobody
a
wants them.
T5.
Nobody wants them. But if they're free, hold on, free
Yeah.
because they're not. But people feel like they are because they didn't pay for it. That's a good point.
And that T5 pool, like sure, only 50% of cards are in the T1 through or T0 through T5, but that T5 pool is so
So deep.
interchangeable with the other 50%
Yep.
that it's basically 70% of the cards is
Yeah, I
in
didn't
the
think about that.
so like no. I think it's kind of well balanced right now, depending on other factors, but we don't need to get into that.
Maybe another time, right? All right, man. This was fun. Thanks so much for
Yeah.
having you on. Make sure here, drop your Twitter handle too, in case people aren't following you, aren't reading your Medium.
Okay. Yeah, it's Yowza. Comes from Griffin Yao. We didn't get into that part.
Oh, he finally got good as soon as he left the MLS.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It took
But
him like 6 months. But Yowza, YOWZAA_. So
yeah, it'll be one by the time I produce this and put it out, it will actually be underneath here. So make sure you guys give him a follow. Thank you all so much. See you.